Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to Soul Stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to join our family. Stay with us, because a new love story is about to begin. The first snow of November had already fallen twice when Elias Thorne found her at the edge of his property, crumpled against the old fence post like discarded clothing. He had been checking his traps, the bitter wind cutting through his beard, when he spotted the splash of color against the white landscape. A red coat, he realized as he drew closer. A woman's red coat, now torn and stained with something darker than mud. Elias had lived alone on this mountain for 7 years. He had built his cabin with his own hands, felled the trees himself, and carved out an existence that required no one else. After what happened in the city, after losing everything that mattered, he had decided that solitude was the only companion he could trust. People disappointed you, people betrayed you, people died and left you hollow. But he was not the kind of man who could walk past a broken thing without trying to fix it. She was barely conscious when he knelt beside her. Her face was a map of violence, one eye swollen completely shut, her lips split and crusted with dried blood. Bruises circled her throat like a grotesque necklace, and when he carefully lifted her, she weighed almost nothing, as if fear and pain had consumed her from the inside out. Elias carried her the half-mile back to his cabin, his boots crunching through the snow with steady determination. She stirred once, her one good eye flying open in panic, her hands pushing weakly against his chest. He spoke to her then, the first words he had said aloud in weeks. "You are safe now. I am taking you somewhere warm. No one will hurt you while you are with me." Whether she understood or simply had no strength left to fight, she went still in his arms. By the time he shouldered open his cabin door, she had lost consciousness again. For 3 days, she drifted in and out of fever dreams. Elias tended to her with the same careful attention he gave to wounded animals he sometimes found in his traps. He cleaned her wounds with water he boiled on his wood stove, applied salves he had learned to make from mountain herbs, and dripped broth between her cracked lips when she was lucid enough to swallow. He gave her his bed while he slept in the chair beside the fire, waking every few hours to add wood to the flames and check that she was still breathing. On the 4th morning, he woke to find her watching him. She had managed to push herself up against the headboard, her one good eye fixed on him with an expression he could not quite read. Fear was there, certainly, but something else too. Calculation, perhaps, the look of a creature trying to determine if the thing before it was predator or protector. "Where am I?" Her voice was a rasp, damaged from whatever hands had closed around her throat. "My cabin, about 20 miles from the nearest town." He did not move from his chair, understanding instinctively that sudden movements would only frighten her. "I found you by my fence line 4 days ago. You were in bad shape." 4 days? She tried to touch her face, wincing when her fingers found the swollen flesh around her eye. "The fever broke last night. You should drink something." He nodded toward the table beside the bed, where he had placed a cup of water and some dried venison. "Eat too, if you can manage it." She reached for the water with trembling hands, and he watched her drink in small, careful sips. When she finally set the cup down, she pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, and he noticed for the first time how young she was. Mid-20s perhaps, half his age. "I should thank you," she said. "No need. I could have died out there, but you did not." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the crackling of the fire. Outside, wind howled against the cabin walls, rattling the single window. Elias had built this place to withstand the worst the mountain could throw at it, and it had never failed him. He hoped it could withstand whatever storm this woman had brought with her. "What is your name?" he finally asked. She hesitated, and he understood that even this simple question carried weight. A name was a thread that could be followed, a connection to whatever she was running from. "Lily," she said at last. "Lily Brennan, Elias Thorne." He stood slowly, keeping his movements deliberate. I am going to make breakfast. You should rest. Over the next week, Lily grew stronger. The swelling around her eye gradually subsided, revealing an iris the color of spring leaves. She began to eat solid food, to sit up for longer periods, to take tentative steps around the small cabin. Elias gave her space, spending his days outside checking traps and cutting firewood, giving her time alone to heal in whatever way she needed. But he watched her too. He noticed how she flinched at sudden sounds, how her eyes darted to the door whenever the wind picked up, how she slept with her back to the wall and her knees drawn to her chest. He recognized these signs because he had seen them before, in the women who came to his mother's shelter when he was a boy, in the hollow-eyed survivors of violence that no one should have to endure. He did not ask about what had happened to her. He figured she would tell him when she was ready, or she would not tell him at all. Either way, it was her story to share or keep. It was Lily who finally broke the silence between them. They were sitting at his small table, eating a dinner of rabbit stew, when she set down her spoon and looked at him directly. His name is Marcus Webb, my husband. The words came out flat, rehearsed, as if she had been practicing them in her head. I've been married for 3 years. He started hitting me about 6 months in. Elias set down his own spoon, giving her his full attention. At first, it was just slaps. He would apologize after, bring me flowers, promise it would never happen again. And I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was admitting that I had made a terrible mistake. She laughed, a bitter sound that held no humor. I got very good at making excuses. I walked into a door. I fell down the stairs. I am just clumsy. People believe what they want to believe, Elias said quietly. Some did, some did not. But no one ever did anything about it, even when they knew. She wrapped her arms around herself. 3 weeks ago, I told him I was leaving. I had saved up some money, had a plan, had a friend who was going to help me start over somewhere else. But Marcus found out. He found out, and he was so angry. Her voice cracked, and Elias saw her hands begin to shake. He wanted to reach out, to offer some comfort, but he sensed that what she needed most was to finish telling her story. He beat me worse than he ever had before, and when he was done, he locked me in the basement and told me I would never leave, that I belonged to him, that he would kill me before he let me go. She took a shuddering breath. I thought I was going to die down there, but after 2 days, he got careless. He forgot to lock the door properly when he brought me food. I waited until he left for work. And then I ran. I just ran. I did not know where I was going. I did not care. I just knew I had to get away from him. She looked at Elias then, and he saw in her eyes a fear that went beyond anything physical. He will be looking for me. Marcus does not let go of things that belong to him. Elias felt something stir in his chest, something he thought he had buried years ago along with his wife and daughter. Anger, hot and righteous, pushing against the walls he had built around his heart. He rose from the table, moved to the window, and stared out at the darkening mountain. What does he look like, this Marcus Webb? Why does it matter? Elias turned to face her, and whatever she saw in his expression made her draw back slightly. Because if he comes here, I need to know who I am looking for. You cannot fight him. He is dangerous, connected. His family has money, influence. The police never believed me when I tried to report him. They always took his side. We are not in his world anymore, Lily. We are in mine. Elias returned to his chair, but he did not pick up his spoon. On this mountain, money and influence mean nothing. The only things that matter are strength, will, and the willingness to do what needs to be done. Why would you risk yourself for me? You do not even know me. It was a fair question, and Elias took his time answering it. 12 years ago, I had a wife, Elena. We had a daughter together, Sophie. She was 4 years old when a drunk River ran a red light and hit their car. He paused, feeling the old wound ache. Elena died on impact. Sophie held on for 3 days before she joined her mother. Lily's face softened with sympathy, but he held up a hand to stop whatever words she might offer. After that, I tried to go back to normal life. I really did. But everything reminded me of them. Every street corner, every park, every child's laugh. So I came up here to be alone, to forget, to stop feeling anything at all. He met her eyes. But I am starting to think that maybe I was not meant to spend the rest of my life hiding from the world. Maybe I was meant to be here, in this place, at this moment for a reason. What reason? To protect someone who needs protecting. To stand between you and the darkness that is hunting you. He leaned forward. I could not save Elena and Sophie. I was not there when they needed me most, but I am here now. And I am telling you, Lily Brennan, as long as you are under my roof, no one will ever hurt you again. That is my promise. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks, cutting tracks through the fading bruises. She did not speak, could not speak, but she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Her touch was light, tentative, the touch of someone who had learned that hands usually brought pain. Elias covered her hand with his other one and held it gently. They passed the next 2 weeks in a strange kind of peace. Lily grew stronger each day, beginning to help. With small tasks around the cabin, she learned how to tend the fire, how to prepare the game that Elias brought home from his traps, how to read the weather by watching the clouds over the peaks. Color returned to her cheeks, and sometimes, when she did not think he was watching, Elias caught her smiling. But they both knew it could not last. The man came on a Tuesday, when the sky was iron gray and threatening fresh snow. Elias was splitting wood behind the cabin when he heard the unfamiliar sound of an engine laboring up the mountain road. He set down his axe and walked around to the front, arriving just as a black SUV pulled to a stop 50 feet from his door. The man who stepped out was exactly as Elias had pictured him, tall, well-dressed despite the mountain cold, with a kind of handsome face that could charm or terrify depending on what suited his purposes. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no, never faced consequences, never encountered anything he could not buy or break. "Good afternoon," the man called out, his voice pleasant and friendly. "I am looking for my wife. She got lost in these mountains a few weeks back, and I have been worried sick about her. A woman with dark hair, green eyes, probably looked pretty banged up when you found her." Elias did not respond. He simply stood there, his hands at his sides, watching. Marcus Webb's smile faltered slightly. The people in town said a man fitting your description was seen buying extra supplies recently. Enough for 2 people, they said. So I thought I would come up and ask if you had seen anything. I have not seen anyone. Are you sure? Maybe I could take a look inside your cabin just to set my mind at ease? No. The smile disappeared entirely. Marcus took a step forward, and now his true nature showed through the civilized veneer. "Listen here, old man. That woman belongs to me. She is sick, confused, and she needs to come home where she can get proper care. Now, I can make things very pleasant for you, or I can make things very unpleasant. Your choice." Elias felt the anger he had been banking for weeks flare into full flame. He thought of Lily's bruised face, her damaged throat, the terror in her eyes when she spoke of this man. He thought of Elena and Sophie, lost to him forever. He thought of all the evil he had walked away from when he retreated to this mountain. No more walking away. I know who you are, Marcus Webb. I know what you did to your wife, and I am going to tell you something, so you listen carefully. Elias moved forward, and something in his bearing made Marcus take an involuntary step back. She is under my protection now. She is not going back with you. Not today, not ever. You have no idea who you are dealing with, neither do you. Elias stopped 3 feet from Marcus, close enough to see the fear beginning to crack through the other man's arrogance. I have lived alone on this mountain for 7 years. I've killed wolves with my bare hands. I have survived winters that would freeze the blood in your veins. I have nothing left to lose and no reason to fear anything you might threaten me with. He leaned closer. But you, Marcus Webb, you have everything to lose. And if you ever come back here, if you ever try to find her, if you ever so much as speak her name again, I will make you understand what real fear feels like. That is not a threat. That is a promise. The same promise I made to her. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then, slowly, Marcus Webb backed toward his vehicle. His face was a mask of impotent fury, but beneath it, Elias saw something else. Fear. "This is not over," Marcus spat. "Yes, it is." The black SUV roared to life, turned clumsily on the narrow road and disappeared down the mountain. Elias stood watching until the sound of the engine faded entirely. Then he turned and walked back to his cabin, where Lily stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. "He is gone," Elias said simply. "Will he come back?" "No, I do not believe he will." She looked at him then, this mountain man who had appeared in her life like something out of a half-remembered dream, who had pulled her from the snow and nursed her back to health, who had stood between her and the monster that had hunted her. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. "Why did you risk everything for me?" Elias considered the question. He thought about all the years of solitude, the walls he had built, all the ways he had tried to escape from his own broken heart. "Because some promises," he said finally, "are worth keeping." He held out his hand, and after a moment she took it. Together they walked back inside, closing the door against the gathering snow.